coming on the air tonight with team coverage of intense, dramatic, and already deadly flash flooding hitting millions of people hard. It is incredibly dangerous tonight with a summer's worth of rain falling just a matter of hours in parts of the Northeast. We're live on the ground where it's happening. We're also live in Lithuania with a big flip-flop late tonight from a key NATO ally just as President Biden is landing to talk Turkey and Sweden and Ukraine. We've got the big picture geopolitics of it all in a minute. Plus, why Congress is coming for a new energy drink backed by Logan Paul. Here's a hint. One can is the equivalent of 6 Cokes, and it's super popular with kids. We've got more on the alarm bells ringing. Plus, should computers replace humans at one of the biggest tennis tournaments in the world? How people keep dropping the ball and where new technology could pick things up. And a summer surprise with a conspiracy theory twist. One of the year's biggest breakout blockbusters catching flack for links to QAnon. We'll explain later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and right now, questions tonight about whether everybody's been rescued after rare, intense, life-threatening flooding that's already killed one person and put whole towns basically underwater. We've got nearly 10 million people under flood watches across the Northeast, including, look at this, in Vermont, as we are seeing more and more rescues. Take a look. This is some body camera footage from New York State Police. They're helping people. Look, that person had been trapped in the car, people trapped on their motorcycles. They're using a rope to get them off this street that had been flooded. People are basically making a kind of human chain to get out. You've got cars stuck there in what used to be a road. Doesn't look like that anymore. You've got train cancellations throughout the Hudson because the tracks look like this: flooded, muddy, problematic. You can see some of it in Stony Point, New York, where streets are flooding up to doors. The Hudson Valley got an entire summer's worth of rain in just a single day. Up a little further at West Point, it was what they call a 1 in 1,000-year rain event, meaning the chances that this happens in a year is just 0.1%. The New York governor today saying prepare for the worst, because the worst keeps happening.
This is the new normal. These are unprecedented weather events that keep hitting us over and over and over again.
George Solis is in the Hudson Valley for us. Meteorologist Bill Cairns will be joining us in just a second. But, George, I want to get to you first because you are there in one of the towns that has been hit the hardest. Give us a sense of what it's like.
Yeah, Hallie, we're here in Highland Falls where the devastation is still being calculated. Behind me, you can see this creek behind me. It is rushing. People here tell me this is not what it should look like on any given day. This should be very slow moving and almost gentle. It is roaring right now, and it gives you a sense of how much water just rushed through this area. People's homes are flooded. They still have to try and get back in there to begin assessing the damage. The roads here, many of them are going to be shut down, even if all the mud's been cleared off, because as Governor Hochul mentioned, right now it's all about assessing. They need to know that these roads are safe before they allow cars to go back over them. And of course, states of emergency have been declared in multiple counties, disaster declarations, FEMA, all of that will obviously be a part of this equation. But the one thing we cannot forget, the people that were impacted. Earlier today, I spoke with a resident of an apartment. Her name was Kat. Her name's Catherine. She goes by Kat. We sat with her on a bench, and she just opened up about her losses. She was in her home as the water began to rush in. She was fearful. Luckily, first responders were able to get to her in time, Hallie, to get her out of her house. But she was so emotional, saying tonight she has no idea where she will lay her head because she has a number of conditions. Her medicine she was able to get out, but some of her belongings, some of her most precious belongings got left behind, and she has no idea if they survived the thing. Take a listen to what she told me.
The water was rushing, on one side from the stream and just rushing through the apartment complex on the other side. The thing that hit me this morning is that my dad's ashes are in a box under my desk, and I can't get those back.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking stuff there, Hallie, and we'll hear more of these stories in the coming days as people begin to assess the damage, because again, from this, it's just cleanup and more damage assessment. And again, the federal funds will come. They'll be able to rebuild. A lot of people in these communities are very resilient, but when you talk about precious mementos that are lost during storms like this, obviously it is just so heartbreaking to hear.
Yeah.
But the good news, at least for now, it does seem like the weather, most severe of it, has moved out. But make no mistake, for a lot of these folks, the work is just beginning, Hallie.
Well, it's the cleanup that's just starting now, George. How did it happen that this took people by, it seems, such surprise, that it got so bad so quickly?
Yeah, and as you heard Governor Hochul mention earlier today, this is a 1-in-1,000-year event. We are seeing a lot more weather of extremes. We're seeing hotter summers, longer winters. We had those Canadian wildfires because of the dry heat. So all this weather is certainly not a coincidence. A lot of people will say this is obviously the impacts of climate change that we are seeing. And fortunately, because there is some knowledge behind all of this, the preparation is in place now. So when there were alerts that this storm was coming and this was going to bring a lot of rain, Governor Hochul said that they mobilized a lot of manpower to get people in place, about 9,000 or so crews in this general region, about 5,000 utility workers alone, to make sure that they had the staffing and the manpower to begin cleanup, to begin damage assessment, because as this becomes more prevalent, we are starting, unfortunately, to become a lot more accustomed to being able to respond to the incidents. But again, it is just still tragic when it happens in your neighborhoods. And as the governor mentioned, we may have to expect more of this to come in the coming years, Hallie.
George Jolie is live for us there in the Hudson Valley. George, thank you very much. I want to bring in now meteorologist Bill Cairns. And obviously, it doesn't look too bad behind George now. You heard him say most of it seems to have moved out. Is that for now or at least for a few days? What's the deal?
This is mostly flash flooding. So flash flooding is in, it does its damage, and then it's gone. So flash flooding is much different than, say, river flooding that we cover in the springtime on the Mississippi River. Now, with that said, all of that water does collect eventually and go into the bigger rivers. So we're going to have flooding issues on the Connecticut River over the next couple of days. And even tonight, a lot of the rivers in Vermont will be cresting, and some of those will be near record crests and major. So that will mean more damage will be done. So the setup is like this. The tropical air is just coming in off the Atlantic and into New England. Slowly, we're going to kick this out tonight. But as of now, we still have tropical air bumping up against this little front here, and it's right over the top of Vermont. We're mostly focused now on northern Vermont, the Burlington area east, up in the mountains here. You know, if you're familiar with skiing, from about Stratton northwards to Killington, that's the area where we're seeing some very heavy rainfall right now. And if you have a heavy rainfall in mountainous areas, it doesn't take much to get significant flash flooding. Just isolated thunderstorms now near the Worcester area, and still raining pretty good by Utica, but that's not causing any damage. So right now, almost all of Vermont is under a flash flood warning. That's pretty rare. And then by the Worcester area, because of those thunderstorms, we have some flash flood warnings. This will continue through tonight. As soon as the sun sets, a lot of this will weaken. So here's the additional rainfall. So Burlington, that's still a possibility of another 2 inches, and especially in the mountainous areas, up to 3. So that's the area, the best chance of getting some significant issues, a little bit in the areas of Maine and some places here in the southern Adirondacks. And that's about it, Hallie. We're mostly done with this event, but we'll still watch those rivers tonight and tomorrow cresting. I know there are some evacuations because of what people anticipate how high those rivers will get.
And real quick, Bill, just to check on the other weather story we've talked about now for almost a week, and that is that record heat wave that is just baking people down south. It's sort of starting to move into, or is in the water, like it's super hot in the Gulf of Mexico. What's up?
Yeah, so we're calling this like an official marine heat wave, something that we don't talk about often. But there's a couple areas in the Florida Keys where the water temperature, not the air, the water temperature is now approaching 91 degrees. So that's like kind of crazy stat. Dallas right now feels like 111. By the way, we've been tracking this all day long. Miami got up to 110 heat index. Their all-time record is 111, so not that far away. And now Sacramento's under heat watch. So we can go from Sacramento to South Florida and a good chunk of Texas, Hallie. It's just going to continue to roast. This upcoming weekend, it looks like we have a chance of some all-time records. We'll be watching Las Vegas closely. 117 is the hottest they've ever been. This will be interesting. Right now, they're projected to be at somewhere around 115 to 116 on Sunday.
Bill Cairns, thank you for watching all of that. I know you're juggling a bunch of balls tonight. Appreciate it. Hey, listen, overseas, we've got some news breaking in just the last hour with Turkey pulling an about-face and saying, yes, they will back Sweden's push to join NATO. This is happening just hours before a very important NATO summit is set to begin. Listen, this is a 180 from Turkey after like a year of opposition from them, including just earlier today when the Turkish president said Turkey would have to get EU membership first before supporting Sweden. So, okay, why does this matter? Well, it's maybe some wind in the sails for President Biden, who's touching down for the summit in Lithuania tonight. He wants to promote NATO unity. And now you've got one big disagreement, the Sweden issue, that seems to be out of the way. That doesn't mean there's no disagreement, because top of mind now will be Ukraine and how to support their important counteroffensive, with the Biden administration making the somewhat unpopular decision to send cluster bombs to the battlefield. Ukraine wants them. They want it to stay in the ammo fight. That's why the U.S. is giving it to them. But it is making things a little bit awkward, including with one of our closest allies, the Brits. You see their prime minister meeting with President Biden today. The UK government saying that this move was forced on, quote unquote, forced on the U.S. by Russia, with UK officials in the past that have discouraged the use of cluster bombs. Cluster bombs, generally, we've talked about them. Just to remind you, they are banned in more than 100 countries, including the UK, because of concerns about how dangerous they can be even years after a conflict has ended. I want to bring in NBC's Hallie, who is joining us now from Vilnius, Lithuania. President Biden wants to show that NATO is more united than ever. You have this new reversal from Turkey tonight. How much of a relief is that for the president and for this White House?
It's a big relief for the president, and it's a major coup for him as well, Hallie. As soon as he arrived here in Vilnius, he went to see Erdogan, and they worked out one of the big issues that was standing out here in Vilnius. There were, several topics aside from Ukraine that were a real focus of attention here, and Sweden's ascension to NATO was one of them. And before the conference has even started tomorrow, President Biden seemingly has convinced Erdogan to let the Swedes join. And this is really a big deal. I mean, let's not forget, Sweden has always tried not to join NATO. They were invited in 1949. They said that they didn't want to join. These are people that haven't started a conflict since the Napoleonic Wars. So for them to join now is a really big coup. They're, neighbors of Russia. They're in that sphere of orbit of Russia. So this is not good for Vladimir Putin. It shows much more unity in NATO. It shows that President Biden is keeping NATO together. He was very happy about this. He says he welcomes NATO's 32nd member. It shows unity, and it especially shows unity in the face of Russia's aggression towards Ukraine. So now they can really focus on some of the other issues, mainly Ukraine and how to support them.
So talk through what that will look like and how this cluster munitions issue plays into that.
Well, this has been a point of contention, as you mentioned. Most of U.S. allies, Britain, France, Germany, have signed a treaty not to use cluster munitions because they're so dangerous. And it also shows how desperate the Ukrainians are, Hallie, because ultimately these cluster munitions are going to land in their territory, albeit occupied, but they really want them. And I think the Brits didn't make a huge song and dance about getting them to them, basically because the Ukrainians asked for them, and they couldn't stop the U.S. from giving those cluster munitions to the Ukrainians when they wanted them so much. They may not be happy about it, but they understand it's a necessity for the Ukrainians, and they're not going to stop NATO's most powerful member giving Ukraine what they need.
Hallie live for us just after midnight in Lithuania. Hallie, thank you so much. Lots to cover there this evening. Appreciate it. There are also overseas tonight so many questions over why in the world Russian President Vladimir Putin would sit down with the guy who tried to take him down, as we're learning more about this meeting between Putin and the head of the Wagner Group, even after the Wagner leader tried to rebel against the Kremlin. You have the Kremlin saying just today that Putin and Yevgeny Prigozhin met on June 29th. June 29th. That is only 5 days after that march on Moscow that Putin called an act of treason. Prigozhin's future has become this big mystery. What's going to happen to him? Where's he going to go? And really importantly, what's going to become of his thousands of loyal and well-trained fighters who have been a big help to Putin in Ukraine? Now, the details of this Putin-Prigozhin meeting are all coming from the Russian state. NBC News has not independently verified them, but I want to bring in NBC's Keir Simmons, who is following all of this for us. It is sort of strange to think about. Why would Putin want to meet with Prigozhin? One thing we do know, right, because this is coming from the Kremlin, Putin wanted us to know that this meeting happened.
Oh, he sure did. I mean, listen, hard to fathom, mysterious. I mean, choose your description. All of them would be right if in any way they encapsulate kind of just the what about this.
Yes.
Listen, Prigozhin was very clear. He didn't actually aim to take down President Putin. So in a sense, meeting 5 days after this rebellion doesn't seem so strange because these are two men who've known each other for decades. You kind of get a sense of kind of old comrades trying to fix a problem that they didn't really want to boil over the way that it did. But just the description from the Kremlin, Hallie, is quite amazing. I mean, they say that it was attended by Putin, by Prigozhin, by the Wagner Group fighters, that it lasted 3 hours. About 35 people attended. Putin, the Kremlin says, listened to the explanations for the mutiny, and then Russia offered the Wagner Group more Ukraine combat opportunities, more chances to be on the front line. I don't think we can necessarily read from this that it means that all is forgiven. I think we can say it's probably a response to what happened last week, where Belarus said, actually, the Wagner Group may not be coming, Prigozhin may not be coming here. Remember, he was offered exile in Belarus. So I think the Kremlin is trying to say, OK, well, this is what really happened. If we can even understand that.
Well, and I hear what you're saying, right? Some of it is, though. I mean, in any other instance, because I hear you on, you know, what Prigozhin wanted was to sort of register his protest about the way that Putin was running his war in Ukraine, and less so about Putin himself. It is still extraordinary, and you've touched on, I think, the next big question, which is, what of the Wagner Group now? What of those fighters? What of Prigozhin? It's still a mystery.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that really goes to a fundamental challenge for Russia. And I'll put it like this. You know, you've got hundreds of thousands of Russian, mostly men, who've been on the front line and have experienced, you know, kind of quite, you know, the kind of things that most of us can't imagine. And they're going to come back to Russia at some stage. And what kind of, you know, kind of psychology is that? What kind of mental health do they have? And so when you what you have with Prigozhin and the Wagner Group is maybe an example of some of the challenges for President Putin, because Prigozhin's message was this. It wasn't, I want to usurp Putin. It was, though, I think this is all being done badly, and that's dangerous. And then what's also dangerous for President Putin is if the impression, you know, kind of begins to take hold that he hasn't really acted to crush this. But then, on the other hand, if he does act to crush it, you know, is he actually damaging people that he needs on the front line, or maybe even causing more of a backlash? He's been in a difficult position. That's not to say he won't be around for the next decade. This is President Putin. I wouldn't bet against that.
Keir Simmons live for us on all of that intrigue, trying to unravel some of it. Keir, thank you. Good to see you as always. Back here at home, disgraced sports doctor Larry Nassar is said to be in stable condition after he was stabbed multiple times by another inmate at a federal prison in Florida. Nassar's there serving time for sexually assaulting gymnasts, remember, including Olympic gold medalists. A prison union leader is telling NBC News today that this high-security prison, which has been dealing with staffing shortages and jobs that aren't filled, is, they say, less safe because of those problems. Nassar was stabbed in the neck, the back, the chest. One of his lungs collapsed. Stephanie Gosk is joining us now. So, Steph, where is Nassar now? What happens to him next?
So we're told he's in the hospital and he's in stable condition. What happens to him next and where he goes is a question mark. But, you know, he was effectively and is effectively serving what is a life sentence on federal and state charges for sexual abuse of minors and the possession of child pornography. The earliest he can get out of federal prison is when he turns 104, Hallie, and then he would have to go straight to state prison in Michigan. So he's in prison for the rest of his life. The circumstances and his safety obviously being a question mark. You know, there were reports citing documents from his attorneys that in a battle for his appeal that said he was actually attacked in an Arizona federal prison as well as soon as he was released into the general population. So it's very clear that Nassar is a target. Also worth mentioning today, Hallie, that Larry Nassar hasn't been in the headlines for a long time. And for his victims today, this was not welcome news. There was no satisfaction in hearing that he had been heard. In fact, what this was kind of re-traumatizing for so many, the hundreds of women who he victimized.
What else do we know? And because it's such an important point, Steph, right? The idea that this is the re-traumatization of those victims. We heard that comment from the union leader speaking with NBC News that there are concerns about staffing shortages at this prison. What else do we know about that piece of this?
Yeah, so this is a high-security prison in Florida. 1,200 male prisoners are there. You know, it's impossible to keep everyone safe when you are in general population. If someone is being targeted, obviously there are concerns about whether or not they have enough staffing. But someone like Larry Nassar, who is as high profile as he is, and people who enter the prison system, especially those who are charged and convicted on the abuse of children, have a target on their back. Keeping him away from people who might want to do him harm is going to be really difficult, even in the best of situations, I would imagine.
Stephanie Gosk, thank you very much for that update. Thanks for being all over that story. Let's talk about this huge manhunt that is happening as we speak for an escaped murder suspect who could be camping out in the woods around Pennsylvania. Police say Michael Charles Burham has self-taught survivalist skills and military experience. They think he's probably pretty good at hiding, and they say they found stockpiles of supplies at campsites that they think could belong to Burham. He was discovered missing from the Warren County Jail in Northwest PA early Friday morning. Officials say he is very dangerous. He is probably armed. If you see him, do not go near him. Rahima Ellis is joining us now. What else do we know about him, the manhunt he was involved in before, his past, etc.?
Yeah, there's more information coming out as a result of a press conference that state police and law enforcement authorities had just a short while ago. And part of it is that they've talked about him being in a wooded area. That's where they think that he is. And that he probably has changed clothes from the jailhouse orange and white uniform that he was in. Authorities had something to say about that just a little while ago. Take a listen.
We believe that he has likely changed clothing. Burham is a self-taught survivalist with military reserve experience, and we believe he has previously prepared to conceal himself in the woods. As previously reported, our searches have revealed small stockpiles or campsites in wooded areas.
One of the things that they're saying is they don't know for sure that these stockpiles that they've seen in wooded areas have anything to do with this suspect that they're looking for, but they are not leaving anything to chance, and so they're considering it. They are searching from the air and on foot because they say it is a very rugged and steep terrain, so they can see some of what's going on from air. But this is a kind of manhunt that they have got to go, it's real shoe leather, if you will, in searching for this guy. Hallie?
But so if there are, just help me understand this, Rahima, if there are stockpiles of things at various potential camp locations, doesn't that suggest that either this guy, I don't even, clearly has help from the outside, right? Isn't that the only logical explanation?
I don't know if it's the only logical one, but it's certainly one that authorities are considering, Hallie, you bet, as well as they're considering the possibility that he may have had help escaping from that facility. He was in an exercise area that was under surveillance, according to authorities, and he figured out somehow how to circumvent that surveillance and get himself through that metal roof cap. And how did he get these bed sheets together, enough of them, and to tie them together to scurry his way down the wall in order to escape the facility in the first place? How was he gathering these bed sheets without the recognition of law enforcement authorities? So, did he get help? You bet that they are considering that, and they've got law enforcement officials from all over the area, 15 different agencies looking for this guy. They've got a reward out of over $9,000 as an incentive for people, but they are saying they consider this man to be armed and extremely dangerous, and if you see him, do not approach him, but call 911 instead, Hallie. Rahima
Ellis live for us on that. Rahima, thank you so much. Coming up here on the show, a lot more to get to, including the new fight today over Aretha Franklin's multi-million-dollar estate. Why it could all come down to a handwritten note found in a couch cushion. Plus, one big paper says it's shutting down its whole sports department. What'll take its place instead? Coming up. A new study says nothing is also something you can hear. We're going to explain that Zen cone coming up in our 5 things in just a second. But first today, you've got a judge in Michigan telling a jury they're going to have to answer just one question to decide what should happen with the multi-million-dollar estate of Aretha Franklin. The question, are handwritten papers from 2014 found stuffed between couch cushions a valid will? So these papers you're looking at right here. This is what the jury is going to have to decide. Is this a legit will? They were apparently written by the singer herself. And you may be wondering, okay, so why does this paper matter? Franklin did not actually leave behind any kind of formal typed out will before she died in 2018. The only thing her family has to go off are handwritten notes, the one you just saw from 2014 and then another from 2010. Both of them were found in her home something like 8 months after she died. And now her sons are divided. They're split on which of the documents they should follow because one of the wills favors one of the sons, the other direction. I want to bring in Maura Barrett, who's following this and joins us now. Can you explain how we even got here in the first place, Maura? Because how is it that somebody as sort of rich and famous as Aretha Franklin, I mean, the queen of soul, she had it all, it seems. She didn't have a will, right? At least not a formal will the way a lot of people think of that, right?
Right, Hallie. She never got around to going to her lawyer's office and typing it out. All we know that exists is these two handwritten documents, one that was found locked in a desk, one that you said was found in the couch cushions, signed and dated by her. One of them was notarized, one of them wasn't. It was something that her lawyer had conversations with her about, but like you said, no official will, as many of us would think a will would appear to be, especially for someone as big and famous as her with this huge estate.
This LA entertainment lawyer who repped Franklin for something like 30 years spoke with NBC News and says he strongly advised her to make a formal will. She never did. So now you have this situation where her sons are trying to figure out sort of what's the right way to split things. A jury's going to ultimately make the decision on which will or which document stands. And they're all coming at this, it seems, from a little bit of a different perspective. Explain that.
Right, and I think it's important to lay out first what the point of contention is, right? In both versions of the will, Aretha Franklin said that her children should be able to split the royalty income from her music and copyrights, anything associated with her as they come in. She wants to make sure one of her sons who has special needs is taken care of and has a good home. The three other brothers are supposed to ensure that that happens. And so that's not the big issue. The issue is kind of where it favors one brother versus another. There's a question over who gets her primary residence, the big main house, whether it's one brother who has a bigger family or if they have to share that property or what other properties they might get. But the thing that really stuck out to me that I think shed some light on the situation is that in the earlier version, that 2010 version, Aretha Franklin said that two of her sons, Kekulf and Edward, would need to take business classes or get a certificate or some sort of degree before they could access the payout of that estate. That later version in 2014 doesn't say anything about needing to get some sort of degree. So I think if we read between the lines here, it becomes clear why these brothers are really facing this point of contention, Hallie.
Handwritten papers with things scratched out and notes in the margins wouldn't even qualify as wills in a lot of states. In Michigan, the only reason they're at trial now is because there's some wiggle room in the law.
Right. It's very loosey-goosey. There's a loophole in which if you have a handwritten will, as long as it is dated and signed and it's in the handwriting by the person who the will would apply to, ultimately the person that passes away, it can serve as a will as long as it appears to be evident that that's what it is. And so this is very much, as legal experts might say, a proceed with caution situation and something that if you take anything away from this story, if you're even considering writing a will or calling up your attorney or going in, because this is so contentious and playing out in a public spotlight, it might be time to get that appointment on your calendar, Hallie.
A good and important reminder. Maura Barrett, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll see what happens, obviously, in that case in Michigan. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. We are seeing for the first time now Jamie Foxx in his first public appearance after he was hospitalized for a medical complication a few months ago. This is some footage from TMZ. It shows Foxx on a boat in Chicago on the river over the weekend. His daughter says he's been recovering since late May. Number 2, a big win in court for Lady Gaga after a judge tossed out a suit filed by the woman who returned Gaga's stolen dogs. Do you remember this whole thing? Lady Gaga's dogs got stolen. This woman ended up suing Gaga for not paying the $500,000 reward that was initially promised. But Gaga's lawyers are like, wait, no, there's no deal because that woman was arrested in connection with the robbery of the dogs. She was also reportedly dating one of the suspect's fathers. Number 3, the end of an era for the New York Times, which just announced it is closing down its sports desk. Now, they're not laying anybody off. They're saying those journalists will move to some other parts of the newsroom. So what do you do if you turn to the New York Times for your sports coverage? You will have to turn to The Athletic. That's a sports site. You probably heard of it, that the paper bought last year. Number 4, Megan Rapinoe announced she is retiring at the end of this season. You know her. She's a soccer super-duper star, an Olympic gold medalist, a World Cup champion. And this year's World Cup, her 4th one, is going to be her last. She's been a big advocate. We've spoken with her for equal pay in women's soccer. She's a big supporter of LGBTQ+ rights. Number 5, hello, darkness, my old friend. Researchers may have just proved there actually is a sound of silence. Yeah, is your mind blown? In this new study, a bunch of scientists took some of these. They call them auditory illusions. It's basically an illusion using sound, and then they replaced them with silence instead. They were able to find the same thing in both, suggesting that people hear silence just like you hear an actual sound. News you can use, friends. Thing you learned today. So listen, let's talk about the thick of Wimbledon right now. You know, it's the biggest tennis tournament in the world, one of them at least. And right now there's this huge debate that's heating up over how Wimbledon uses people as line judges who call balls in or out, like a line judge is a human instead of a computer. Now, here's where this gets interesting. Back this past Friday, you had Andy Murray, 2-time Wimbledon champion. He had a line judge call his shot out, but it was actually in. Could have changed the whole outcome of his match. He didn't find out it was out until after the match at a news conference. Watch.
Your return got called out and it was actually in the show. Do you realise at the time how close that was? Do you consider?
The 50 charity point, my return was in. Yeah, well.
Yeah, that's pretty much all he can say. Venus Williams earlier in the week lost her first round match after an out call from a judge, one that she did not agree with. That ended the match. Both Venus and Andy Murray are out of the tournament now. It's not just them. All the players you see here had a call change their trajectory at Wimbledon this year. Now, here's the thing. Calls happen. They are a part of the sport. That is what you need in tennis. But other professional tournaments rely almost totally on technology now to make those calls electronically. Wimbledon has this tech too. They just don't use it all the time, except for a very limited number of challenges that a player can make in a match. This has been a point of contention for decades, right? Not necessarily the tech, but just like, is it in or is it out? The idea that a line judge can, introduce human error, naturally, since we're humans, into the sport. I know you remember this. You probably weren't alive for it, but you probably saw it on YouTube. The epic meltdown from John McEnroe at Wimbledon. Watch.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious. That ball was on the line.
Nobody likes a line call that they don't agree with. Former professional tennis player and NBC sports reporter Julie Elbaba joins us now for more on this. Okay, for the tennis people among us, this technology, it's not 100% accurate, but it is better than a human eyeball looking at the line, right?
Yeah, it is as accurate as we could possibly get. I mean, you have at least 6 cameras that are linked to computers, and the combination of the technology, it gives basically a 3D representation of where the ball bounced. So it's as accurate as you can get.
So what's the issue? Why won't Wimbledon use it?
Wimbledon is filled with tradition. We got the strawberries and cream, we got the all whites, we got a curfew at night. They want to stick with line judges. They want to keep it, keep that history, keep that going. You get 3 challenges throughout the match, 1 more if you go into, 3 challenges in a set, 1 more if you go into a tiebreaker. They want to keep that history going.
But at what point, Julie, and maybe there won't be a point, right? Maybe Wimbledon will just kind of, and I'm imagining it here, but kind of say, hey, technology be damned, we're sticking with the tradition thing. But we've just shown you, even just this tournament, time after time, in which there were, debatable calls, at least in the case of Andy Murray, for example, that could have made a difference. Will there be, what's your sense when you talk to your friends who are in the league, who play tennis, players, et cetera? What's your sense of whether there will be a tipping point for tournaments like Wimbledon?
Yeah, so right now we have the Australian Open and the U.S. Open. They're exclusively with Hawkeye. And then you got the French Open. There's no Hawkeye at all. You see the clay, you can see where the ball bounces. So they're kind of relying on that. And now we have Wimbledon, where you have a combination of both. So I think the future is in Hawkeye, and being able to kind of mentally just relax knowing that a match or a set will not be taken away from you if one call goes wrong.
I have to issue the disclosure now about you in particular, because you have some very strong feelings about this. You lost a big match because of a call that was incorrect, right? I think we have a picture. You were like legit fired up after that happened. This is having, I mean, you know it, Julia, this is having a real impact on players.
Yeah, I was in the second round of the Australian Open in 2012, and it cost me the set, therefore costed me the match. And it's something that tennis players have to deal with, unfortunately, too often. And it sticks with you forever. You know, you're always thinking about it. And sometimes it takes away from just like being able to play the match because you're just so worried about outside factors that you can't control. So we need to see a change.
Julia Elbaba, thank you very much. Fascinating debate going down right now at Wimbledon. Appreciate you coming on. When we get back here on the show, some potential new trouble for Twitter tonight. How Threads has set a new record in just 5 days. The FDA is getting asked to look into an energy drink backed by huge YouTube stars that has a ridiculous amount of caffeine in it, potentially hurting the kids who seem to love it. We're going to talk about that later this hour. But first, we are learning tonight that Threads is now officially hitting 100 million users in just 5 days. That means it is the fastest growing app ever, according to a third-party tracker. It is good news for Meta, which obviously owns and runs Threads. And it may be trouble for Twitter. Look at this. Traffic on Twitter kind of tanked since Meta's launch less than a week ago. You see that drop? I mean, you see it. That's according to Cloudflare. I want to bring in Dave Ingram, who's following all of this for us. We can talk. First of all, that's a huge amount of users. I mean, 100 million users in 5 days is a lot, granted. But there's a lot of talk and there's a lot of discussion. Threads could be a Twitter killer. It doesn't seem to me like we know that'll be the case yet. But what say you?
That's right, Hallie. It is so early, just 5 days in here, but 100 million users, that sets a record for how quickly an app got to that number. The previous record was just set a few months ago by ChatGPT, which had all this attention and excitement around it. Now, Threads is seeing that same kind of excitement. You know, it has a huge advantage in that it's connected to and owned by Instagram. Mark Zuckerberg said he was still completely overwhelmed by the response to this. But, you know, I think like a lot of people, when this launched, I got a notification on my phone that I could join it through my Instagram account. And that gives Threads such a huge advantage over any other app that might want to be a Twitter competitor. Instagram itself has 2 billion users, so potentially each one of those users could be a Threads user at some point. Twitter has nowhere near those numbers after more than a decade of existing, 15 years plus in existence. Right. The real question here is how this will play in society, whether Threads will be the true public square for discussions about politics and other important matters that Meta wants it to be. Twitter has been the closest thing that we've had to that in the world. And Threads with this much larger scale could be the place where that public conversation happens. They're going to have questions around misinformation. They'll probably handle that differently than Twitter will. Threads uses the same community guidelines or sort of rule book that Instagram does. So that means that it'll have a pretty strict policy on nudity, on hate speech, other things that Facebook and Instagram are known for cracking down on. So big trouble for Twitter and a huge opportunity for Meta.
Dave Ingram, thank you very much for that. Interesting stuff. Coming up here on the show, we are just getting in some new details on a Marine who has now been released after a missing 14-year-old was found on a California base. Plus, dramatic rescues from the Yellowstone River. What officials are warning people before getting on the water about. We've got some breaking news out west where we're just learning the Marine at the center of a case involving a missing 14-year-old girl found by military police in the barracks of a California military base. That Marine has now been released back to his command. It comes as the Navy, the San Diego Sheriff's Department, and the city's Human Trafficking Task Force are all joining forces on just a really extraordinary case. You can see the Marine here getting taken into custody. Of course, he hasn't been arrested or charged with anything yet. The grandmother, who reported her teenage granddaughter missing, says the girl has run away in the past, but always returned home quickly. Let's bring in Miguel Almaguer. And this is just a strange case, Miguel, with a lot of question marks around it. And now this news breaking late tonight that this Marine has been released. What else do we know? And this girl found on base, how did this teenager get on base in the first place?
Well, Hallie, those are all good questions, and we don't yet have all of the answers. We do know that there's multiple agencies investigating, but few details have been shared. Here's what we know. That 14-year-old girl was reported missing back on June 13th and was found on the 28th. Her whereabouts during that time period have not yet been outlined, but we know she was found inside a highly secure base in a dormitory-style building that houses Marines. Those two facts raise a lot of questions. How does a 14-year-old girl get into a secure military facility, and how long was she in the barracks, which are inspected or supposed to be inspected every day? We don't yet have answers to those questions. Here's what retired Colonel Jack Jacobs told us just a short time ago.
To hide somebody inside the barracks in a unit that's well led and inspected all the time would be virtually impossible. So having somebody inside the barracks who escapes detection, that indicates a lack of leadership.
Now, the military has released a statement. It does read, a Marine with Combat Logistics Battalion 5, 1st Marine Logistics Group, was taken into question for custody by the Naval Criminal Investigative Services after a female minor was found inside the barracks on June 28, 2023. The Marine was questioned by NCIS and released to his command pending further investigation. All of this just spurs more questions. The Marines are expected to release more information, but that'll likely take several days, Hallie.
Can you talk about the history of this particular military base in Southern California, Miguel?
So they have had problems before. Just a few years ago, back in 2019, I believe, there was about 24 Marines who were arrested and charged with human smuggling and drug charges. There's also been other similar incidents in the past. Of course, those are not connected, but it details what some call a troubling pattern of events that continue to happen at Camp Pendleton. Of course, Hallie, as you know, it's an iconic military base. It's where Navy SEALs often train, who are not connected to this in any way, but it is a troubling investigation and a troubling find at that base.
A lot of questions tonight. Miguel Almaguer, thank you for being on top of it. We appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, we've got more to get to, including NBC News covering hundreds of stories every day. And because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Northeast Bureau, one of the 5 people killed by a shooter in Philadelphia had actually been killed almost 2 days before that mass shooting happened, according to investigators. Police say they got a 911 call reporting shots fired on South 56th Street, but then sent officers to North 56th Street. They didn't find anything. Philly's district attorney says this new info has not changed the number or type of charges that have been filed against that shooter. Out of our Western Bureau, take a look at this rescue on the Yellowstone River. Emergency services had to go out and rescue somebody who got stuck in a tree when her raft flipped. Look at this. So this is at night. So this is like the reverse, heat cam. Other people who were looking for her went out. They got stranded on an island. That's what you're seeing there. They're getting pulled into that boat. Officials said, fortunately, everybody has come back safe. Thank goodness. They stressed the importance of having the right gear for the conditions. And out of our Western Bureau, this could be one of the oldest places that humans have ever occupied in North America. Researchers have been excavating a spot in Oregon. They found tooth fragments that are something like 18,000 years old. That's older than Cooper's Ferry in western Idaho, where there's evidence that there were humans something like 16,000 years ago. The Bureau of Land Management says researchers will keep testing fragments, but there you go. To a new fight now over an energy drink, a company founded by 2 big-time influencers, Logan Paul, I bet you've heard of him, and KSI. It's got a huge following among kids, and lawmakers say that's a problem since these drinks are loaded, like uber loaded with caffeine. You want an idea of how much? One of these drinks, called Prime, is the same as 2 Red Bulls or 6 cans of Coke. Company telling NBC News in a new statement today that it states clearly on the packaging as well as in marketing materials that this drink is not made for anybody under the age of 18. But the top Senate Democrat, Chuck Schumer, has asked the FDA to investigate Prime. Dr. John Torres is joining us now. It's zero sugar, vegan. That's the advertising on Prime. And they say the amount of caffeine is kind of similar to other energy drinks. Is there something specific about this drink? Is it really more about high levels of caffeine across the board?
And Hallie, I think the most important thing to remember about this is just how much kids are actually drinking in this. And this is a very popular drink. And I'm even amazed at my friends who have teenagers and preteens who are telling me, yes, their kids want this. They're drinking it all the time. It's even hard to get. And so the issue comes in that if you look at the nutrition label that they have there, there's really not much on the nutrition label that in and of itself is harmful to the child. But that caffeine is something that can be very, very dangerous to them. And so we need to realize that smaller bodies can't necessarily handle as much as bigger bodies. And even for ourselves as adults, the recommended maximum per day is 400 milligrams. And so we're talking 4 cups of coffee recommended per day. Here it's 200 milligrams in this one jar, in this one bottle. And sometimes they drink multiple bottles throughout the day. So they're getting multiples of 200 milligrams. They're getting over 2 cups of coffee. And like you said, 2 of those Red Bull energy drinks a day each time they do that. And they can have heart palpitations. They can have gastrointestinal issues. They can have heart failure. A lot of issues behind this. And so that's the big concern.
My heart is palpitating just talking about it, Dr. John. I mean, is part of the reason why this is so popular with kids specifically in a way that maybe Red Bull or something else isn't, is part of that the influencer impact, do you think?
Well, I definitely think it's the influencer impact, because when you talk to, especially when you talk to adolescents, and they talk about these guys actually influencing them, and what I've been using is kind of an equivalent. You know, they say we're only telling them 18 and above, and that's what our label says. But when you look at the marketing, you know, it doesn't quite fit with that. And if you look at vaping years ago, it was the same thing. The tobacco companies were saying, well, it should only be reserved for adults, but then their marketing was found to really target children. And I think that's what you're talking about here, children and teens. As a matter of fact, the CDC came out with some statistics that even at the level, the adolescent level, 30 to 50% use energy drinks. Almost 12% of schools have these, not necessarily prime, but energy drinks in vending machines, at their school stores, at the cafeterias. So they're there, they're ubiquitous. They can get them, and unfortunately, it might cause some issues. And so I think this is something good to look into.
We'll see what the FDA does. Dr. John Torres, thank you. We are coming on the air tonight with team coverage of intense, dramatic, and already deadly flash flooding hitting millions of people hard. It is so dangerous tonight, with a summer's worth of rain falling in just a matter of hours in some spots in the Northeast. We're live on the ground where it's happening. Plus, we're just learning Vladimir Putin sat down with the guy who tried to rebel against him. What Putin and Yevgeny Prigozhin may have talked about, and why the Kremlin is publicizing this whole chat now. And right now, multiple manhunts in multiple states for suspected murderers who've escaped from prison. And one of those inmates with survivalist skills has been on the run before. We'll explain. Plus, new details on that disgraced sports doctor convicted of sexually abusing female gymnasts, just stabbed by another inmate multiple times in a federal prison. And is the handwritten will of Aretha Franklin, found stuffed under a couch cushion, actually valid? That is now up to a jury in Michigan to decide. We'll bring you the latest on day one of this Aretha Franklin fortune fight later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and right now there are questions tonight about whether everyone has been safely rescued after those rare, intense flash flooding events that have already killed one person and put whole towns underwater. You've got nearly 10 million people under flood watches across the Northeast. Look at this. This is in Vermont. We're seeing more and more rescues, video at least, coming in. This is some body camera footage. New York State Police had to go out. They put out these ropes to help people get out of their cars and get through that water safely. People on motorcycles had to be rescued. It was kind of like this human chain. Cars got stuck on what was a road. It now looks like a waterfall. Trains were canceled throughout the Hudson Valley because the tracks look like this. Look at Stony Point, New York. Streets are flooding up to doors. You had the Hudson Valley getting an entire summer's worth of rain in just a single day. Up a little further at West Point, it was what they call a 1 in 1,000 year rain event, meaning the chances something like that happens in a year. There's Stony Point. We're about to show you West Point. The chances of something like that in a year is something like 0.1%. I mean, This is not normal. This is not normal in West Point, with the New York governor today saying prepare for the worst because the worst keeps happening.
This is the new normal. These are unprecedented weather events that keep hitting us over and over and over again.
George Solis is in the Hudson Valley live for us tonight. We'll get to meteorologist Bill Cairns in a second. But, George, I want to start with you. Do we know if everybody that needed to be rescued, everybody that needed to be helped, has been helped by now?
Yeah, good evening, Hallie. At this point, it does appear that everyone that needed help in rescuing has been helped. That is the good news. You mentioned that one fatality, authorities identifying her as 43-year-old Pamela Nugent of Fort Montgomery. This community, of course, devastated by the loss of life, devastated by the loss of their homes and belongings, and the assessments for all that still underway tonight. Those images that we showed earlier, people driving in that water, the governor again reminding people that is not something that you should ever do. It's why we always hammer home that message of staying away when the water is that high. Turn around, don't drown. It's a cliche saying, but it's obvious that we have to do that when you hear about these loss of lives and the loss of cars that happen during these weather events. Behind me, you can hear this was supposed to be a babbling brook. It is roaring right now, and it really gives you a sense of how much water moved through this region. This is expected to keep moving like this for several days as this water continues to recede. Cleanup underway. A lot of homes underwater right now, their basements flooded, a lot of belongings lost. The governor here on site today reminding people that just because you may not see the water there, you may not see the debris, it may not be safe to go on because this water was so fast moving during this flash flooding event that some of this roadway may have washed away. So they really have to be careful in assessing and taking their time to make sure everything is safe and passable. The governor saying, of course, states of emergency will be declared. FEMA federal funding will be made available once everything is fully assessed. But it's really the people who are grieving the most. I spoke with one resident of an apartment complex who was inside of her home when this water began to rush. Kat was her name. I sat with her on the bench. She was completely devastated. She says, firefighters were great in getting me out of my home, but I know so many of my belongings are lost tonight. I don't know where my head will go to bed tonight. Take a listen to part of my conversation with her, Hallie.
The water was rushing, on one side from the stream and just rushing through the apartment complex on the other side. The thing that hit me this morning is that my dad's ashes are in a box under my desk, and I can't get those back.
Hallie, your heart goes out to her and so many people who are picking up the pieces tonight. And for them, the cleanup is just beginning, Hallie.
And that's what's so hard, is that this really is just the start here. The good news seems to be, George, and you've alluded to this, the worst of the flash flooding is over. It is so extraordinary. It is so unusual for the region.
Exactly right. Climate change is happening. We have longer summers, longer winters. We have these flash flooding events that are happening with more frequency. 1 in 1,000-year flood event, sure, but the governor, as you heard, say this is going to happen with more frequency. And so they are prepared. They just hope they don't have to be for the next one. Hallie?
George Solis live for us there in the Hudson Valley. Thank you. Bill Cairns is joining us now for the weather outlook. It is, if it's not the floods in the Hudson Valley, it is the heat out west, right? I mean, it's just people around this country can't catch a break tonight.
Yeah, floods, heat. We even got severe storms today, too, to talk about in the middle of the country. So let's get all into it. The areas of greatest concern the rest of this evening is northern Vermont. We're done with all our flash flood warnings for Vermont. Almost every single river is in flood stage or, heading into major, in some cases, close to a record. And actually, there's a new flash flood warning. Worcester, Massachusetts, under a flash flood warning. So we still have isolated flash flooding, but now we'll transition to more river flooding as all that water collects and starts to head into areas like the Connecticut River. Highest estimated totals, another 2 to 3 inches northern Vermont. Now let's talk about the heat. And my apologies to Dallas. It looks like you're in the lead. 113 degrees outside in Dallas in the shade right now. Miami's been up to 110 today. Of course, it's still brutally hot in areas like Brownsville. It's more of a dry heat in the desert Southwest, but it is going to boil and bake just all week long and even into the weekend. We have 55 million people under heat headlines again. Remember last week we got down to about 14 million. So now we're back up to like 1 out of every 6 Americans is under a heat headline. And this now includes areas of Central California, Sacramento, and the Phoenix, Vegas. All of these areas are going to get very hot. Vegas up to 115 this upcoming weekend. Your all-time record high is 117. And we do have severe weather, too. North Texas back through Omaha all the way to Wisconsin. We'll be watching you all evening long.
Bill Cairns, thank you very much for that. Let's take you overseas, where we are just learning that President Biden will meet with the Ukrainian president on the sidelines of that big NATO summit in Lithuania, according to a source familiar with NATO, trying to figure out what is the path forward as it looks to support Ukraine in the invasion by Russia. The news of this whole thing is coming as Turkey is suddenly pulling a 180 and saying, yes, we will back Sweden's push to join NATO. That's after a year of opposition from the Turkish president, including just earlier today when he said, hey, we want to get into the EU first before we let Sweden join NATO. Obviously, that's no longer the operative case. Okay, why does this matter? Well, it is maybe some wind in the sails for President Biden. There he is, touching down in Lithuania tonight. He wants to promote NATO unity, and now you've got one big disagreement out of the way. Still, that doesn't mean that there are no disagreements now. We talked about Ukraine and how important that topic is going to be at this summit. We talked about how President Biden will meet with President Zelensky. That's not long after the president has made the decision to, yes, give Ukraine the so-called cluster bombs that it wants. This is a pretty controversial weapon, and not everybody in NATO agrees that it should be used generally. In fact, the UK, President Biden meeting with the UK Prime Minister today, the UK is one of more than 100 countries that bans the use of cluster weapons. How does this play into NATO? Let me bring in now Hallie, who is live for us in Lithuania, where it is, I think, almost 1 a.m. or past 1 a.m. at this point, Hallie, so thank you for staying up late. The meeting here between President Biden and President Zelensky, it's going to be on the sidelines of the summit. Talk through what that might look like, especially with this issue of cluster bombs out of the way. I have to imagine maybe fighter planes comes up.
Definitely. Look, they got the cluster bombs despite objections from some very close allies of the United States, like the United Kingdom. And so the next thing is not just the sustained support they want from the United States and the rest of NATO, but how to step up that support. And that, obviously, as you mentioned, the F-16s, that's been a major thing that the Ukrainians want. And the British also back them on that. The British defense minister has said, holding up getting those F-16s to the Ukrainians does give the Russians an advantage because they've mined miles and miles of territory that the Ukrainians can't break through, mines that we haven't seen the likes of since the Iran-Iraq war in the 80s. So that's a big barrier for the Ukrainians to break through, and they can't really do it without the fighter jets. So that's probably what President Zelensky is going to be pressing President Biden for when they meet face to face. And that's the best time to do it. You can ask for things over the telephone and through your aides, but nothing works when two people meet, shake hands, they sit around a table, and you can really get to the heart of the matter. So that's going to be a great opportunity for President Zelensky to push Biden to get some more things he needs for Ukraine, namely the fighter planes. Whether it'll come through or not is another matter.
Let's talk about that. Well, that is a huge question mark, Hallie. Let's talk about this other sort of moment, though, that could help President Biden as he's walking into this NATO summit. And that is the idea that this disagreement with Turkey not wanting Sweden to join NATO until Turkey got into the EU, that seems to be out of the way with the new comments, this reversal from the Turkish president today.
Yeah, it's a big coup for President Biden. Before even getting here, Erdogan has agreed to let Sweden into NATO. So, President Biden arrives here with that under his belt. He meets with Erdogan tomorrow to probably iron out some of the details. But that just goes towards all of that unification that President Biden wanted for NATO, especially after the invasion of Russia. And let's not forget, this is a really big deal because Sweden had resisted getting into NATO since its inception in 1949. This is a country that hasn't started a direct conflict since the Napoleonic Wars. They stayed neutral in World War I, in World War II. They've taken a policy of non-alignment in peacetime and not getting involved during wartime. So for them to join NATO is a big deal, and they're only doing that because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and that really does strengthen NATO. President Biden said he's going to welcome the 32nd member of NATO. This is only going to strengthen the alliance, and it's going to be another barrier for Russia to try and overtake Ukraine.
Hallie live for us late tonight in Lithuania. Hallie, thank you. Lots to talk about. We know, looking ahead to tomorrow. We'll see you again. Elsewhere overseas, there are just so many questions tonight over why the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, would sit down with the guy who led a rebellion against him. That apparently happened. We are learning more about this meeting between Putin and the other person you see on your screen. That's the head of the Wagner group. Even after the Wagner leader tried to lead a mutiny, short-lived, against the Kremlin. The Kremlin saying just today that Putin and Yevgeny Prigozhin met on June 29th. That's just 5 days after that march on Moscow that Putin called an act of treason. What happens next to Prigozhin is this huge international mystery. Where is he going to go? And especially, what's going to happen to the thousands of loyal and well-trained fighters that report to him that have been helpful to Vladimir Putin on the battlefield in Ukraine. The details of this Putin-Prigozhin meeting are all coming from the Russian state, and NBC News has not independently verified them. NBC's Keir Simmons is following this for us tonight. Keir, let me repeat something I just said. The details on all of this are coming from the Russian state, meaning coming from the Kremlin. That in and of itself is a tantalizing and telling detail on this.
Yeah, I mean, the Soviet era, we used to call this Kremlinology. And it's just absolutely mysterious, bizarre, hard to fathom. Choose your description, because just to underscore what you said, what the Kremlin is telling us tonight is that 5 days after President Putin said that the mutiny could have caused a civil war in Russia, he sat down with the people that he said had stabbed him in the back, heard them out for almost 3 hours, and proposed that they go back to the front line in Ukraine. I think one of the things that is happening here is that last week Belarus showed us empty tents where Wagner fighters were supposed to be, and the president of Belarus told us that, in fact, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of Wagner, might not come and live in exile in Belarus. And I suspect this is the Kremlin trying to reassert control, trying to say President Putin is in charge here.
So if Putin's in charge, presumably Putin would have some degree of control over what happens to Yevgeny Prigozhin next, right? But that, you said pick your adjective here, hard to fathom, extraordinary, whatever. I'll go with baffling, because what is up with Prigozhin, right? He's in Belarus, he's in Russia, he's laying down his arms, he's still fighting. Like, where does this go?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some interesting insights to kind of share. I mean, obviously, people will know the story, will know this well. Yevgeny Prigozhin has known President Putin for a long time, decades. So they're kind of old comrades, if you want to put it that way. Clearly, they fell out quite badly. Another aspect is that President Putin, though he can be decisive, can also be quite indecisive. So we don't know what's really going on behind the walls. And so, you know, in many ways, and I've said this now for, you know, the past week or so, right. I wonder whether we can perhaps describe this less as a rebellion and more as the lid coming off rivalries between the people around President Putin and others around President Putin trying to put the lid back on again. It is difficult to know where this goes from here, because, as you say, we don't know where Yevgeny Prigozhin is. We wonder, you've got to wonder, what does it look like for President Putin not to have crushed this rebellion and the people around it? Is he concerned that, in fact, that would cause more of a backlash? I mean, I think one of the things we can conclude amid all this mystery is that the ramifications of the rebellion that happened in Russia are still playing out for President Putin.
And I think you're pulling on a thread that's so important, Keir, and one that we as Americans, as international journalists, find, I think, very hard to see into, and that is the dynamics of the people around Vladimir Putin, right? His top military leaders, his top generals, because that is so critical moving forward on the battlefield in Ukraine.
Yeah, and there's lots of rivalries, and there always have been. And there's an argument to say that President Putin quite likes that's the way he manages, that's the way he leads, is having people fighting each other beneath him. I mean, clearly, it got a little bit out of control. But the question really now is it back in control?
Keir Simmons, live for us on all of this intrigue, if you will, internationally. Keir, thank you. Back here at home, you have disgraced sports doctor Larry Nassar, said to be in stable condition after being stabbed multiple times by another inmate at a federal prison in Florida. Nassar is there serving time for sexually assaulting gymnasts, including Olympic medalists Simone Biles, Hallie Raceman, Gabby Douglas. A prison union leader is telling NBC News today that this high-security facility has been dealing with staffing shortages and jobs that aren't filled. They say it's less safe now because of those problems. Nassar was stabbed in the neck, the back, the chest. One of his lungs collapsed. Stephanie Gosk is joining us now. So, Steph, where is Nassar now? What happens to him next?
So we're told he's in the hospital and he's in stable condition. What happens to him next and where he goes is a question mark. But, you know, he was effectively and is effectively serving a life sentence on federal and state charges for sexual abuse of minors and the possession of child pornography. The earliest he can get out of federal prison is when he turns 104, Hallie, and then he would have to go straight to state prison in Michigan. Michigan. So he's in prison for the rest of his life. The circumstances and his safety obviously being a question mark. You know, there were reports citing documents from his attorneys that in a battle for his appeal that said he was actually attacked in an Arizona federal prison as well as soon as he was released into the general population. So it's very clear that Nassar is a target. Also worth mentioning today, Hallie, that Larry Nassar hasn't been in the headlines for a long time, and for his victims today, this was not welcome news. There was no satisfaction in hearing that he had been heard. In fact, what this was kind of re-traumatizing for so many, the hundreds of women who he victimized.
What else do we know? And because it's such an important point, Steph, right? The idea that this is the re-traumatization of those victims. We heard that comment from the union leader speaking with NBC News that there are concerns about staffing shortages at this prison. What else do we know about that piece of this?
Yeah, so this is a high security prison in Florida. 1,200 male prisoners are there. You know, it's impossible to keep everyone safe when you are in general population. If someone is being targeted, obviously there are concerns about whether or not they have enough staffing. But someone like Larry Nassar, who is as high profile as he is, and people who enter the prison system, especially those who are charged and convicted on the abuse of children, have a target on their back. Keeping him away from people who might want to do him harm is going to be really difficult, even in the best of situations, I would imagine.
Stephanie Gosk, thank you very much for that update. Thanks for being all over that story. There is a massive manhunt happening as we speak for an escaped murder suspect who could be camping out in the woods around Pennsylvania. Police say Michael Charles Burham has self-taught survivalist skills and military experience. They think he's probably pretty good at hiding. And they say they've found stockpiles of supplies at campsites that they think could belong to Burham. He was discovered missing from the Warren County Jail in Northwest PA early Friday. He's dangerous. He's probably armed. If you see him, don't go anywhere close to him. Raheem Ellis is joining us now. Where does this manhunt stand right now? How urgent is it? And what else do we know about this guy?
This manhunt is urgent. They have a number of authorities out looking for him. They are searching from the air and on foot, going into some terrain that they say is very rugged and very steep, and they are mincing no efforts in their effort to try and capture this person who has eluded them before. This person was under suspicion for having for the rape and the murder of a woman in New York, and authorities say as they were closing in on him, he then allegedly kidnapped an elderly couple in Pennsylvania and took off. And it took police about 13 days to track him down in South Carolina. So a short while ago, authorities talked about the fact that Burham has eluded authorities twice now. Take a listen.
Obviously, that's a concern for us from the standpoint that he has experience in running from law enforcement. What will be done with him after he is captured, and he will be captured, again, that's a discussion for another day as to where he will be housed. I would expect that whatever those arrangements are, that we will be certain that he will be securely held.
And held once they capture him. Authorities say they have more than 15 federal, state, local agencies with manpower out looking for him intensively right now. Hallie?
How would he have stockpiles at these places? Officials have said that they think that's happening. Like logistically, how does an escapee pull that off?
That's a question that they were asked essentially at the press conference, and the question being, did he get help? And authorities saying they're not ruling anything in, but they absolutely are not ruling anything out, including how he might have managed to get out of that jail in Pennsylvania. How did he manage to get a collection of bed sheets, enough that he could tie them into a rope situation and make his way out? How was he able to elude the vision of authorities when he was in a recreation area that authorities say was under surveillance? How did he manage to do that? Did he know the corners and the times that he should be in that corner to make his escape? Big questions. We don't have answers to any of that at this moment, but authorities are absolutely concerned about the fact that they found some stockpiles of material. They don't know if it's related to this man, to this suspect, but again, they're not ruling it out. There is a reward out for him, but authorities are telling everyone, do not approach this man. He is considered armed and dangerous. Hallie?
Ruhaima Ellis, thank you very much. Coming up, some new details tonight after the arrests of TSA agents at one of the busiest airports in this country. How police say they ended up stealing from passengers. Plus, the first health update from Madonna since she was hospitalized for that bacterial infection. We'll show you in just a second. So we've been talking a lot about heat today, but it is snowing somewhere else for the first time in more than a decade. We'll tell you coming up in just a little bit. But let's talk about Michigan, because today a judge there is telling a jury they're going to have to answer just one question to decide what should happen with Aretha Franklin's multi-million-dollar estate. The question: are handwritten papers found stuffed between couch cushions a valid will? This is what you're looking at. Those are those papers found in, well, I guess they were written in 2014. You see the date there, found just 8 months after Franklin died. You might be wondering, okay, so like, what is this? Why isn't that her will? Is there another will? In fact, there is not a formal typed out will like you might think about, but instead it was another set of handwritten papers from apparently 2010. That's all her family has to go off. These two kind of competing sets that were found at her house. Each one gives a little bit different instructions for what to do, and importantly, who gets what. Maura Barrett is joining us now, and this has split Aretha Franklin's family, right? I mean, we're talking about somebody with hundreds of millions of dollars in assets. She did not leave something, more formal behind, and now there's this, truly court fight on what happens from here.
That's right, Hallie, and it might be surprising that Aretha Franklin, someone with her worldwide audience and an estate of this size, didn't leave something more formal behind. Our team actually spoke with her lawyer of 30-some years, and he said that he had warned her to go through the legal process to get a formalized will. But it turns out that Aretha Franklin was actually, behind closed doors, a very private person. He told our team, I think she didn't want to share that information with another individual, such as an attorney. I think that's why, for the longest time, she didn't go into someone's office and do the formal planning. Don Wilson, her lawyer there, told NBC News, and he went on to say that the fact that this is playing out in public now because of these handwritten wills would probably go against her private persona as it is. And the thing is, this comes into question right now because Michigan has this wiggle room where all this is playing out, that a handwritten will actually can suffice as long as it is signed and dated by the person that the will is referring to, the person that dies, and that it's in their handwriting and that it is evident that it's what they want their will to be. And so that's why there's this point of contention over which will should they consider and whether this should even be considered in the first place. But like you said, the jury seated today will be considering that one question of whether or not that latest version that has been found will serve as Aretha Franklin's final will.
What do her sons want? Because wouldn't they get the final say here?
They're definitely a factor of play here. Basically, between the two wills, there is a point of commonality that the four sons will get the royalty income from her music, her copyrights, that will be split amongst the four sons. But there's a point of contention over what the two different wills said. One of the sons went on to have a rather large family. He wants the main property that his mother left behind for his family, for his kids, his grandchildren. The other brothers didn't have that. But one version of the will, if you look at the differences that we have laid out here, one version of the will says that two of the brothers should share the property, and another version says that one of the sons gets it. The other big difference between the 2010 and 2014 version is that in the earlier version, she wanted two of her sons, Keckoff and Edward Franklin, to take a business class and get a degree before they could get the payout for the will. The later version in 2014 doesn't have anything about that, but it also alters who would be the co-executors of her ultimate estate. And so there are some fine-tuned, nitty-gritty details that need to be sorted out that do differ between these two wills. And ultimately, if the court says that the 2014 version is what holds, that's the latest version that we have or that has been discovered, and that will be what happens, and that's how the brothers will have to settle it then amongst themselves, Hallie.
Maura Barrett, thank you very much. We'll see what happens. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, for the first time since he was hospitalized a few months ago, we are seeing Jamie Foxx now in public. There he is. This is some footage from TMZ. You see the watermark, but that's Jamie Foxx on a boat going down the Chicago River over the weekend. Fox's daughter says he's been recovering ever since late May from that medical condition. Number 2, we are also hearing from Madonna for the first time since she was in the hospital last month. Remember we told you about it when it happened? She ended up in the ICU for a bacterial infection, according to her team. Today, she says she is on the road to recovery. She thanked her fans and said she didn't want to disappoint people who bought tickets for her tour. She is planning to reschedule those North American dates, and hopefully, she thinks, be healthy enough to do the European leg of the tour in the fall. Number 3, the end of an era for the New York Times, which just announced it'll shut down its sports desk. They say they're not planning to lay anybody off. The journalists will just move to other parts of the newsroom. But if you want your sports fix, you're not going to get it from the Times anymore. You'll get it from The Athletic, which is, of course, that sports site that the Times bought last year. Number 4, 3 TSA officers at Miami International Airport have been arrested after officials say they were caught on camera stealing from people during security screenings. And they were like team style, apparently. Like in one instance, they allegedly worked together to distract somebody while somebody else took $600 out of a wallet. TSA says it has no tolerance for misconduct in the workplace and that the officers have been removed from their screening duties until the investigation's over. Number 5, nobody won the Powerball this weekend. So if you care, it is up for grabs again tonight. Top prize, $675 million. You have a 1 in 292 million chance at actually getting it. Mega Millions will have its next drawing tomorrow if you don't win tonight. Listen, best of luck to you. Best of luck. Over in England, it is Wimbledon. It is the thick of Wimbledon right now, the biggest tennis tournament, at least one of them in the world. And there's this huge debate heating back up over how balls should be called in or out, whether it should be humans or computers acting as the line judge. You know who might care about that? Andy Murray. Because this past Friday, Murray, who won Wimbledon twice, had a line judge call his shot out, but it was actually in. Could have changed the whole outcome of the match. Murray didn't find out about the in-out thing until afterwards at a news conference. Look at this moment.
Your return got called out and it was actually in the show. Do you realise at the time how close that was? You consider
the 50 charity point my return was in. Yeah, well.
Yeah, pretty speechless there for him. We've seen some other instances of debatable balls happening. Venus Williams lost her first-round match after an out call from a judge that she did not agree with. Both her and Murray are out of the tournament, and all the players that you see here actually had a call change their trajectory at Wimbledon this year. The thing is, most other professional tournaments rely not on people to be the line judges, but on technology, almost exclusively to make those calls electronically. Now, Wimbledon has access to this tech. It's called Hawkeye. They just don't use it except for a limited number of challenges players can make in a match. Now, listen, agonizing over what's in and what's out has been a part of tennis for decades. It's been a bone of contention since before I was born. With one very specific meltdown at Wimbledon coming to mind. You know what I'm talking about.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious. That ball was on the line.
So that was John McEnroe back in 1981. He was mad about a call that a line judge made. And that's the issue, right? Is like, how do you remove that element of sort of human potential error out of the game? Do you use the tech? Let me bring in now NBC sports reporter Julia Albaba, who joins us now for more. Okay, for the tennis people among us, this technology, it's not 100% accurate, but it is better than a human eyeball looking at the line, right?
Yeah, it is as accurate as we could possibly get. I mean, you have at least 6 cameras that are linked to computers, and the combination of the technology, it gives basically a 3D representation of where the ball bounced. So it's as accurate as you can get.
So what's the issue? Why won't Wimbledon use it?
Wimbledon is filled with tradition. You know, we got the strawberries and cream, we got the all whites, we got a curfew at night. They want to stick with line judges. They want to keep it, you know, keep that history, keep that going. You get 3 challenges throughout the match. 1 more if you go into, or sorry, 3 challenges in a set. 1 more if you go into a tiebreaker. They want to keep that history going.
But at what point, Julie, and maybe there won't be a point, right? Maybe Wimbledon will just kind of, and I'm imagining it here, but kind of say, hey, you know, technology be damned. We're sticking with the tradition thing. But we've just shown you, even just this tournament, time after time, in which there were, you know, debatable calls, at least in the case of Andy Murray, for example, that could have made a difference. Will there be, I mean, what's your sense when you talk to your friends who are in the league, you know, who play tennis, players, et cetera? What's your sense of whether there will be a tipping point for tournaments like Wimbledon?
Yeah, so right now we have the Australian Open and the U.S. Open. They're exclusively with Hawkeye. And then you got the French Open. There's no Hawkeye at all. You see the clay, you can see where the ball bounces. So they're kind of relying on that. And now we have Wimbledon, where you have a combination of both. So I think the future is in Hawkeye, and being able to kind of mentally just relax, knowing that a match or a set will not be taken away from you if one call goes wrong.
I have to issue the disclosure now about you in particular, because you have some very strong feelings about this. You lost a big match because of a call that was incorrect, right? I think we have a picture. You were like legit fired up after that happened. This is having, I mean, you know it, Julia, this is having a real impact on players.
Yeah, I was in the second round of the Australian Open in 2012, and it cost me the set, therefore it costed me the match. And it's something that tennis players have to deal with, unfortunately, too often, and it sticks with you forever. You know, you're always thinking about it, and sometimes it takes away from just like being able to play the match, because you're just so worried about outside factors that you can't control. So we need to see a change.
Julia Elbaba, thank you very much. Fascinating debate going down right now at Wimbledon. Appreciate you coming on. When we come back, a new challenge to AI. How one famous comedian says ChatGPT stole from her book. Plus, Harry Styles just becoming part of a group that no musician really wants to be a part of. We'll tell you what a fan chucked into his face in the Global. Sarah Silverman tonight suing Meta and OpenAI. She says they're ripping off her content to make their apps work better, and Silverman says that is not okay, that she never gave her permission for that. She's joining a couple of other authors in a pair of lawsuits against both tech companies, alleging they used this book by Silverman, The Bedwetter, and content made by the other authors without permission, in order to train these AI language models. There's been no additional comment yet from Silverman or from anybody else on either side of the case, but I want to bring in NBC legal analyst Danny Savalos, who is joining us now. Let me do like micro macro with you, Danny. Let's start micro on this specific lawsuit, because Sarah Silverman is basically saying, no, this is not okay, and it's highlighting how this technology, you know, essentially scrapes stuff to get smarter. She's saying, don't scrape my stuff.
It's fascinating, because if it wasn't AI and it was a human being doing it, you could argue there's nothing wrong with reading a book and giving a summary of what that book says. I mean, that's kind of what Wikipedia does. That's what we do in casual conversation. But when AI does it, especially for a profit, then the complaint argues it's a totally different thing. They don't make the same comparison that I do, but the point is that by scraping all this information, ingesting it, and then using it to provide a product or a service to other people, and of course make money from it, they're basically benefiting from the intellectual property created by these authors. And if this is a viable claim, it could arguably mean anybody, anywhere with a copyright that has been ingested by AI, arguably forever. I mean, they'll always have that information, and now it just goes into sort of the ether in that AI brain. Then arguably all of these people could potentially have a claim. It's a pretty significant lawsuit.
It is, and it's significant because, as you allude to, Deanne, the floodgate piece of it, right? So now pull macro here, because AI in many ways, I'm a layperson, but it is foundationally built on the idea that all of this content goes through the sausage maker and becomes another piece of content, right? Like that. I mean, that's how this stuff works. That's how this technology actually works. And so this feels like it could be the very beginning of a much bigger and broader issue for some of these AI companies.
You're exactly right. I mean, the idea of a derivative work, the idea that artists may be inspired by a prior artistic work or a work in the field for patents, for example, is part of the idea of intellectual property. But is it a different thing when that brain that's taking on that prior art, that prior work that other people have done, when it's a computer and it's doing it for profit? Is it different? You talk about the floodgates, and arguably this lawsuit could be the floodgates. It is styled as a class action. That means that they are planning to not only sue on behalf of the named plaintiffs, but eventually have an entire class of all people who have been affected in this way, the same way the plaintiffs have.
Danny Savalos, we'll see where this one goes. Thank you. Coming up here on the show, what we are learning right now about the Marine at the center of a case involving a missing 14-year-old girl found on base. Plus, some new warnings tonight around a really popular energy drink backed by some big-name influencers, names I know you know. Why Congress wants the FDA to get involved. Some new developments out west where we're just learning the Marine at the center of a case involving a missing 14-year-old girl has now been released back to his command. This teenager was found by military police in the barracks of a military base in Southern California with the Navy, the San Diego Sheriff's Department, and the city's Human Trafficking Task Force, all joining forces on what is just an extraordinary case. You can see the Marine here getting taken into custody. We're about to show you that still. You see that image? Of course, he hasn't been arrested or charged with anything yet, and again, has now been released. The grandmother, who reported her teenage granddaughter missing, says she has run away in the past, but has always returned home quickly. Miguel Almaguer joins me now. And this is just a strange case, Miguel, with a lot of question marks around it. And now this news breaking late tonight that this Marine has been released. What else do we know? And this girl found on base, how did this teenager get on base in the first place?
Well, Hallie, those are all good questions, and we don't yet have all of the answers. We do know that there's multiple agencies investigating, but few details have been shared. Here's what we know. That 14-year-old girl was reported missing back on June 13th and was found on the 28th. Her whereabouts during that time period have not yet been outlined, but we know she was found inside a highly secure base in a dormitory-style building that houses Marines. Those two facts raise a lot of questions. How does a 14-year-old girl get into a secure military facility, and how long was she in the barracks, which are inspected or supposed to be inspected every day? We don't yet have answers to those questions. Here's what retired Colonel Jack Jacobs told us just a short time ago.
To hide somebody inside the barracks in a unit that's well led and inspected all the time would be virtually impossible. So having somebody inside the barracks who escapes detection, that indicates a lack of leadership.
Now, the military has released a statement. It does read, a Marine with Combat Logistics Battalion 5, 1st Marine Logistics Group, was taken into question for custody by the Naval Criminal Investigative Services after a female minor was found inside the barracks on June 28, 2023. The Marine was questioned by NCIS and released to his command pending further investigation. All of this just spurs more questions. The Marines are expected to release more information, but that'll likely take several days, Hallie.
Can you talk about the history of this particular military base in Southern California, Miguel?
So they have had problems before. Just a few years ago, back in 2019, I believe, there was about 24 Marines who were arrested and charged with human smuggling and drug charges. There's also been other similar incidents in the past. Of course, those are not connected, but it details what some call a troubling pattern of events that continue to happen at Camp Pendleton. Of course, Hallie, as you know, it's an iconic military base. It's where Navy SEALs often train, who are not connected to this in any way, but it is a troubling investigation and a troubling find at that base.
A lot of questions tonight. Miguel Almaguer, thank you for being on top of it. We appreciate it. To a new fight now brewing over an energy drink, a drink company founded by a couple of big-name influencers, including Logan Paul. This drink has like a big following for kids, for teens, and lawmakers say that is a problem since these cans are loaded, like seriously loaded with caffeine. To give you an idea, the caffeine in one of these drinks, called Prime, is the equivalent of a couple of Red Bulls or 6 cans of Coke. The company tells NBC News today in a new statement that it states clearly on the packaging, as well as in marketing materials, that it is not made for anyone under the age of 18. But clearly some kids love it. Look, this one video, you know, kids go, the whole thing. Get your Prime, right? Pull those bottles off the shelves. That is why the Senate's top Democrat, Chuck Schumer, is sending a letter to the FDA demanding an investigation into this company. Dr. John Torres is joining us now. We'll get to the investigation piece in a second, but what is the issue with Prime itself? There's a lot of really caffeinated drinks out there. I mean, there are, the company says, hey, the amount of caffeine in this drink is kind of the same as other energy drinks. It seems like the nexus of why Congress is getting interested is because of the backing by some of these influencers, which seems to be making it more popular, at least anecdotally, with kids.
And Hallie, I think that's exactly right. If you look at the energy drink spectrum, there are some that have up to 300 milligrams of caffeine in the bottle themselves. And so there are some with more, there are some with less, but this one tends to be one of the more popular ones, especially with that age group. And part of that has to do with the social media influence that's being put on them. And you talk to kids that age group, which I have talked to some of my friends, teenagers, and they all want Prime. That's like a big thing for them. It's a status symbol to have that and to walk around with it. The issue is, again, that caffeine, like you mentioned, 200 milligrams, the equivalent of 6 Cokes or 2 energy drinks or more than 2 cups of coffee. For us, you and I as an adult, not that big a deal if you drink 1, maybe 2 a day. But for children, teenagers, it can be a big issue because the American Academy of Pediatrics says they should be having no caffeine. Other experts are saying, that's not reasonable. Let's say 100 milligrams of caffeine seems to be a safe level for them. This is much, much higher than that, Hallie.
What would an FDA investigation do, Dr. John? So Chuck Schumer, Senator Schumer, wants the FDA to look into this company. What would that functionally do?
So the FDA could go in there and say, we need you to do a couple of things. One, stop marketing to kids. We know you're saying you're not marketing to kids, and your label says 18 and above, but we've seen with other things, using vaping as an example, that even though everything was pointed towards 18 and above, kids were very much influenced by the commercials and by the social media. Same thing here. On top of that, they can say you need to have very distinct labels between your Prime Energy and your Prime Hydration with caffeine and without caffeine, and you might even need to drop the caffeinated levels. They have the power to do a lot of those steps to try and keep it to the point where, again, for adults, not that big a deal. For teenagers, you want to make sure that they're careful.
Dr. John Torres, thank you very much. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our foreign desk has done it for you. Here's some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of China, police say 6 people were killed. Somebody else was hurt in a knife attack at a kindergarten today. The victims reportedly included students and parents and a teacher. Just awful. Police there say the suspected 25-year-old attacker has been arrested. Out of Austria, Harry Styles has now become the latest musician to get hit by something while performing. Look at this. Some videos from his concert in Vienna show him, he's like covering his face. He was flinching. Something flew at him. Reps for Styles did not respond to NBC's request for comment, but this is part of a pattern we've seen lately. People at concerts throwing things at artists on stage. Remember BB Rexa and the cell phone? So obviously it hurts, doesn't feel good. In South Africa, check it out. Tons of snow. People in Johannesburg getting a rare dusting today. Some places there get snow in the winter, but it hasn't happened in that city in more than a decade. It's a wrap for this hour and for the one before it. If you missed any of it, catch up on the latest reporting and newest interviews from our team. You can find us anytime in so many places, including Peacock, Hulu, YouTube, etc. Just search Hallie Jackson Now. We've got much more coming up here on NBC News Now with Top Story, picking up our coverage.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.